A nearly insane gesture. The leader of the Brazilian landless workers movement, João Pedro Stedley, declared that the Brazilian landless workers movement is organizing the deployment of brigades of 50 to 100 young activists to defend Venezuela against the United States.
What is it?
We will close ranks and stand with you. Count on the Brazilian people.
The statement was made naturally, as if it were reasonable to send civilians armed with sickles and hoes to face the world's greatest military power. The announcement not only exposes the degree of ideological commitment of the movement to the dictator Nicolás Maduro, but also reveals a level of submission to an authoritarian regime that has oppressed its own people for years. What's up? Welcome to life in the barracks.
Well, the Brazilian landless workers movement sends me a brigade of 1,000 men and women from Brazil to work on Venezuelan land.
Welcome, Brazil. Welcome. The Brazilian landless workers movement's decision gained momentum after Nicolás Maduro signed a decree at the beginning of 2025 donating 180,000 hectares of Venezuelan land to the Brazilian movement.
The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, announced a partnership with the landless rural workers movement, the Brazilian landless workers movement. The goal is to develop a 10,000 hectare project to produce food in Venezuela.
This gesture was not solidarity, but a pact of mutual loyalty. In exchange for the land, the Brazilian landless workers movement committed to defending the Chavista regime, even if it means putting young Brazilians at risk in a foreign territory. The alliance between the Venezuelan dictator and the Brazilian movement extends beyond politics. It becomes manipulation using misery as a tool for power. The Brazilian landless workers movement, which was born under the banner of the struggle for agrarian reform and social justice, has become a political arm of the Latin American left. Its leaders live with privileges, while thousands of families remain camped in precarious conditions, waiting for promises that are never fulfilled. The structure of the movement spreads throughout Brazil, functioning as a mechanism of ideological mobilization, where the hope for housing is used as bait to maintain control over the most vulnerable. The proposal to send activists to Venezuela was approved during the World Congress in Defense of Mother Earth, which brought together popular movements from 65 countries. The rhetoric is always the same: defending people's sovereignty, resisting imperialism, protecting the land. But in practice, what we see is the instrumentalization of poor young people in the name of a power project. With Russia and China facing their own challenges, and allies like Cuba and Nicaragua unable to offer military support, the Venezuelan dictator turns to any help he can find. Maduro even handed out old rifles to elderly women, urging them to defend the homeland if invaded. The image of a country on the brink of collapse trying to resist with obsolete weaponry and support from foreign agrarian movements is the portrait of the decay of Chavismo. The Brazilian president, despite being a longtime Maduro ally, avoids publicly supporting the Venezuelan regime. Internal pressure and fear of retaliation from the opposition and the population keep him silent. Behind the scenes, however, the relationship with Maduro remains strong, with exchanges of political support and ideological alignment. The Brazilian government's failure to address the Chavista regime's atrocities clearly shows complicity. The North American troops continue advancing in the Caribbean Sea, further intensifying Operation Final Circle. Southern Command has already positioned surveillance drones, F-35 fighters, strategic bombers, and anti-submarine warfare aircraft in the region. The naval fleet includes destroyers, submarines, and troop transport vessels. More than 10,000 military personnel are mobilized, ready to act at any moment. The difference in military power between the American forces and any improvised resistance is abysmal. CIA agents infiltrated inside Venezuela monitor the regime's movements and gather strategic information. The silent presence of American intelligence indicates that Maduro's fall is not just a possibility, but a matter of time. The operation is expensive, risky, and politically sensitive, but backing down is not an option for the United States. Maduro seeks to establish a humanitarian belt around Venezuela, serving as a symbolic shield to hinder military incursions. But the reality is that this belt is made up of unarmed civilians, ideological militants, and promises, empty pieces. The strategy is more for the media than effective, and it only serves to prolong the agony of a collapsing regime.
It depends on our victory. If you don't want Venezuela to fall into a bloodbath, into a fratricidal civil war, violence, fascists.
Saturday, it's an option for women to conquer territory. In the West, Zang. Ozen Na but no occupies a Luzarki, climbing Bar Beatriz Zanato. Millions of citizens have left the country seeking refuge and dignity in neighboring nations such as Brazil. Those who remain in Venezuela live under an oppressive regime, facing censorship, hunger, and daily repression. Maduro's land donation to the Brazilian landless workers movement was not generous but a favor exchange. The narrative built around the defense of Venezuelan sovereignty hides ulterior motives. In exchange for political support and international mobilization, the dictator secures loyalty and positive propaganda. The geopolitical stage is boiling, and Latin America has become the scene of a struggle between democratic forces and authoritarian regimes. Venezuela is the epicenter of this battle, and Brazil, even if indirectly, is being dragged into the eye of the storm. Comment below if you think sending Brazilian landless workers movement activists to Venezuela is backed by the Brazilian government or just the movement acting alone. Share your opinion about what is really behind this support for Nicolas Maduro's regime.
The Brazilian landless workers movement presents itself as a movement, in the words of the Brazilian landless workers movement itself, of civil disobedience for a greater cause. We've seen this in other instances of politics. When you're going to do something for a greater cause, you usually end up breaking the rules of the game.
At the Barracks on Vida, stay updated on all military news. Leave your like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos that's appearing on your screen. Forward combatants, see you next time.